Therapy's about congruence. It's not about the therapist's agenda. If the therapist pushes their agenda on you, run in the opposite direction and then pick up the phone and call your state board of examiners to grieve them. It's not about their bias. It's not about their agenda. It's about helping you make sense of your life and find congruence. And so
in the spirit of things, and that this is the Mental Health Made Simple podcast, I always try to hold us very accountable to how many times we tend to still use like the big words and big definitions and types to talk about the stuff we talk about on the podcast. Yes, I go back and listen to everything. It's not me being a perfectionist. It's just I like to see like how things go.
How about they be the judge of that though after they listen to the perfectionistic episode? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
We'll let them be the judge. And so go back in the show notes and listen to that one. But we have talked about different therapy types, and I wanted us to start to infuse some shorter conversation in about simplifying like different types of therapy, because there's not just therapy. It's almost like going to either one of those like teppanyaki girls or like a sushi buffet where you walk in and there's like, it's all sushi, but there's like a million different types of different types of sushi that you can pick from. And the best way I have to describe what this type of therapy today is that I've had what's called cognitive behavioral therapy, and I've had solution focused therapy. And so the best way I would describe, like the wrong way to describe it, would be that cognitive behavioral therapy is when your therapist makes you do CrossFit while crying about your childhood.
I got to visualize that one for a minute. They're not prepared for that. CrossFit by okay.
Like you're doing deadlifts and it's physically straining, and you're doing snatch and cleans and you're just like sweating and you're like, yeah, I'm going, and you're just weeping about your childhood at the same time.
You know, that might actually be an interesting form of therapy. I might have to, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's not how we do it.
I guarantee you we could turn that into a mental health hack and become instant viral influencers.
Oh, probably. Yeah, you and I do
like literal mental fitness.
Do a little spoof in CrossFit gym and
the 90-day reset to wipe your mental health clean with mental fitness with Mark and Jonathan. Come do snatching cleans while crying about your childhood.
You're on. Let's figure that out. That would be fun. Well, I like this because I think we talk about this all the time. This is not counseling. This is not replace counseling. This is just tools in your tool belt. And as we were talking, we're going, you know what? We probably should like give you all like the lowdown on certain types of therapy so you're not walking in blind.
Yeah, and if you're new to the podcast, like go back and get caught up. And like I said, we're trying to make things as simplified and as approachable as possible, because mental health is often overcomplicated, gatekept, and things are presented in a way to be truly helpful, but in a way that most people just can't understand. And I was going somewhere with that. And oh yes, and if you're new here, we're just two dudes talking, but Mark is a very well-respected clinician, speaker, professor, former pastor. I'm a former pastor, but I'm a practitioner of mental health. I'm entrepreneurial, leadership space, work with several orgs, run my own creative space, creative agency. And I'm deeply passionate about mental health. Mark has all of the clinical knowledge. And so we decided, what if we just combine this two and sit down and have conversations that people either love or hate, and hopefully they find value. And so far they have. And if you're new, we want to welcome you to Mental Fitness, where we're going to do CrossFit and make you cry about your childhood. So there you have it. And oh, by the way, leave us a rating and review.
We need to create like those drawn videos, like some kind of, and just create a meme around that. That'd be hilarious.
Somebody doing a deadlift while crying.
Yep, exactly.
Yep, awesome. So we're breaking down cognitive behavioral therapy today. It is a mouthful, and I jumble the words together often, so you're going to hear it pronounced once correctly. And in the rest of the episode, I make no guarantees. So let's simplify CBT.
Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
What is it not?
Don't zone out. It is not an end-all, be-all, fix-all formula.
And it might not be the right fit for you.
It might not be. And the reason I say that is there are people that love this so much that it becomes their end all be all fix all and it misses things. Now, don't hear me say this. I like it and I use it in my tool belt as a therapist, but it is not the lens at which I look at stuff.
So as a therapist, I have a question for you. Do you use just one type of therapy with your clients, or do you infuse different nuances of different types based on the patient's needs? I only asked that because it was never really explained to me. Like I was always assumed and understood that, oh, this person is a CBT therapist, this person is a whatever therapist. This is, that's all they did.
That's still happening. So it's still important that when you're looking for a therapist, you recognize and ask those questions. I would, and this is going to get me in trouble, but I don't care. A good therapist is going to be someone that has a pretty interesting understanding of change, continuum of change, and then they have an understanding of what it means to be human. Those two things are really important. What is change and what does it mean to be human? I encourage my students all the time to wrestle with those questions, and here's why. Because that's gonna be how you show up with your patient or your client. So every client that I look at, I see through the lens of how I understand those two things.
And do you weigh that against? So I'm assuming when you see a potential client and you're weighing those questions out, are you weighing that based on whether you will be either A, suited to help them or not be best suited to help them, or if you feel like you are suited to help them, what would be the initial best move?
So yes. So it informs the intake process that I do, and the questions I ask, and that it informs how I engage the person. And so the way I do it is any potential client gets a half hour free consult with me. And we talk about these types of things. What's bringing you to therapy? What are you hoping to get out of therapy? Here's who I am. What kind of questions do you have for me? Here's how I approach therapy. We talk about all of that. And then I tend to ask them, go take the night. If they're of faith, take the night to go pray about it. If they're not, take the night to just think about it. Talk to some people in your life about it. Really recognize it's going to have to feel like a decent relationship. And if it doesn't, then let me help you find another place.
I think that's the kicker too, is having the ability to say, hey, I don't know that I'm actually best suited to help you. Or if they just say, hey, I don't know if you're the right fit. And then to say, okay, well, how can I point you towards somewhere else? I use that process in my own business, which is not counseling, in the business space. If I realize I wouldn't be able to fully show up for someone, or that maybe my skill set is not designed to help them get to that next stage, I'm already thinking like, okay, the next layer of value here is let me guide this person into the right direction. And I would say in clinical care, especially mental health, that's even more important because you're dealing with someone who they may have a small issue, they may have a big issue, and you don't want to leave them feeling like, you're out in the cold. Sorry, see you later.
Right. The sign of a good therapist is how they engage you in the first 30 minutes of your session.
Yeah, because it's not about you, it's about them.
And so I always tell people that, like, you have the first right of refusal. You're the consumer. You're looking for somebody that's going to be a good fit for you, that's going to challenge you, that's going to engage you. And here's the thing. A therapist is not meant to affirm. A therapist is not meant to agree or to give advice or to fix. A therapist is one that's going to listen, lean in, use the skills and some of the tools that we'll be talking about in these shorter episodes to draw out inconsistencies, directions, growth, all these things in your own life. They're basically really good detectives trying to help piece things together and ask questions. And the whole goal of therapy, let's just be completely honest, the way I see change in human condition is congruence. And when I say congruence, it's meaning, is what I'm saying, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and the life I've created for myself, does that all feel like it fits, the pieces of the puzzle fit together well? And I'm okay with it. Most of the time when people come to us in counseling, their puzzle is completely screwy.
Oh man, I don't want to laugh at this. Have you ever watched the show New Girl?
Oh gosh, a long time ago.
There was an episode where they realized Winston was colorblind. When it was Schmidt and Winston, and they were around and they realized he was colorblind and he was wearing this awful outfit. But during the whole episode, he was trying to put a puzzle together and he could never get it together. And at the end of it, they realized because he was colorblind, he was trying to put it together backwards.
Oh gosh.
The underside of all the pieces, he would see this puzzle and it was all just mangled and shoved together because he was colorblind.
Well, that's a beautiful example to this conversation. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, and that's really what it is therapy is about congruence. It's not about the therapist's agenda. If the therapist pushes their agenda on you, run in the opposite direction and then pick up the phone and call your state board of examiners to grieve them. It's not about their bias. It's not about their agenda. It's about helping you make sense of your life and find congruence. And so we have different tools then that can help us with that process. And one of them is cognitive behavioral therapy. And simply put, cognitive behavioral therapy is this idea of changing our thoughts so that our life will change.
When you talk in terms, when you say congruence, and correct me if I'm wrong, incongruence is what's on the inside is different than what's on the outside. Congruence is now what's on the inside is the same as what's on the outside. And CBT, because I'm going to jumble the words up, is one pathway to getting you from being incongruent with your mental health to congruent.
Great simplification. I love that.
That's why I'm here.
If we look at cognitive, it's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
It's to teach you to learn how to, in spite of being colorblind, how to then be able to put a puzzle together the right way so that you can see the different pieces of the puzzles and not just like put it together wrong.
Right. And so I think a lot of times we think that our feelings, the age-old conversation of what comes first, our thoughts or our feelings. What drives behavior, right? This is all the stuff that we argue about in the counseling field, which is just stupid. But is this idea that,
I mean, I would say your thoughts trigger your feelings.
Yes, and I think it's a 1/100th to 1/300th of a second either way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So so a thought actually, here's what I'll say, is a thought sparks an emotion, and an emotion is our body's physiological response to something, internal or external. So think about anxiety. A thought will actually trigger something in the body, a tightness of chest, the turning of a stomach, and then we make sense of that. A feeling is the sense that we make from that emotion. So a feeling is, what is the meaning of this?
Yeah, it's like, ooh, you think I'm hungry. 1/1000th of a second later, your stomach is like grumbling.
And then and then we go, okay, then I need to get food. We make meaning of that based off of that emotion. What cognitive behavioral says is, okay, we need to map out and pay attention to our thoughts. If we can become in control of our thoughts, we can then become in control of our feelings, the meaning we make from the emotional experience. And if we do that, then our behaviors change.
Okay. So I've experienced 2 therapists CBT, and I've done one of the other types that we'll talk about next time, which is solution focused. And I did not like that at all.
No, and I think thoughts, feelings, behaviors make sense, but I think it's not just this. And so typical things that you'll hear that come up is one, cognitive distortions. So cognitive distortions are when those thoughts come up and they're combined with that emotional physiological response. We're making meaning of it from a feeling. Cognitive distortion is all or nothing thinking. A cognitive distortion is catastrophizing. This is so bad. The world's falling apart. Nothing ever goes right. That's all or nothing too. Then there's the mind reading, which means that we're trying to analyze those around us and make sense of it. And then we begin to spiral in our own thoughts. Or there's overgeneralizing, and it's in some ways oversimplifying the process. And so these are the automatic thoughts or the traps that come up. All or nothing, catastrophizing, mind reading, or overgeneralizing.
Okay. So again, to try and be real simple, and then again, feel free to be like, no, that's wrong. Because with this, to the listener, Mark is the expert. I'm the practitioner, so you're going to get real simple for me. So you have cognitive and then behavioral. So the cognitive example would be in terms of the thought. would be, and this, I'm going to take this back to the perfectionist episode, where it's like, I always screw things up.
That's an automatic negative thought.
So that's the thought, that's the cognitive part. And the behavioral response would be then, now I'm going to become a dismissive avoidant. I'm going to avoid trying new things because I am going to make the assumption that I'll fail.
Yep. Or I'm going to give up, or I'm,
I'm going to quit before I get started. So I'm always going to screw things up. So why am I going to try?
exactly. And here's the issue. Most of us see the outcome. We see the behavior. We have no idea how we got there. And so CBT helps us slow down and backtrack to go, what is that? We call it an ant, automatic negative thought. What is the ant that we're trying to squash? And then when we squash that ant, it changes our behavior, or we rewrite it. So if we're aware of our automatic negative thoughts and we catch ourselves, we can rewrite that into a different phrase.
So this is what really clicked for me when I started to see the benefit of cognitive behavioral therapy. There, I got it right. Is that I have such negative inner monologue, like negative self-talk. Not so much in the form of, I tell myself, you're a failure, you suck, I did that a while ago. But it's no longer like, you suck, you're a failure, I always screw things up. But I learned that negative self-talk also shows up in, I am naturally in tune to see the critique or the negative in scenarios. So if I'm designing a website for someone, if I'm not careful, I will go into it looking at everything that could possibly go wrong first and trying to prep for it before the outcome. That in and of itself for me created this very negative approach to things and would keep me stuck from pursuing new, like, healthy outcomes.
And what I'm saying is this theory, you're capturing it really well, is that thoughts, emotions, feelings, and behaviors are all connected. And so if we want to adjust the behavior, we've got to start first with the thought, and then that process that, and I think in some smaller presenting issues and those kinds of things, it can be very effective, but a lot of times it doesn't. The reason I have an issue with it from a purist standpoint is a lot of times it doesn't lead us to the reason that we are that way. It just points out the problem.
Right. So the way where I really benefited greatly from it was with the counselor that I had currently. I've told you, I sought this counselor out because I was like, I had become very self-aware of what was going on. Like, I learned, like, oh, these are the things that caused this to happen. What I wasn't good with was all of the emotions on the other side and untangling how those emotions played into those things. And it got me to a point where I was like, okay, cool, I have all this stuff now. Now what do I do with it? My current counselor uses cognitive behavioral therapy, but everything is done in response to that, like the emotional side. Okay, this is how you now act on these things, and this is how you can grow. I would not have benefited from this level of counseling now without the really good, like, 1.0 version. That may be just true for me. It also took me going through one really terrible season with the most. I'm not going to drag it through the mud. You know how hurtful that was. It was bad. But that in and of itself brings a question, because it was my first experience with counseling. I'd gotten to a place where I wanted to go, and I allowed myself to get beat up because I was in such a place where it was like, I don't know, like I don't know what's right. I don't know how to get any better. And it finally took someone saying, that person's not helping you. It may have even been you. It may have even been you, like, no, that, and you need to report that. Before I realized, like, oh, and now I can move on, because I was like, I'm here, fix me. And I just thought that's the way it was supposed to be.
And you stay stuck in that. Yeah, and I think that's why we're doing these little mini episodes too, is just kind of going, here's what's happening, here's what it should look like. And so, I think the practical tools that we use in CBT that are client facing, meaning I'm not going to do this for you, I'm going to have you do this for yourself, and you can come back and report to me as a therapist.
And I had a lot of exercises, and what I learned from those is, just like the perfection episode, you gave an example of someone who's on a home renovation project. Those homework exercises, they give you tools, and they teach you things, and they teach you skills, and they help rewire those pathways in your head, in your brain, to get you to where the narrative that you tell yourself changes, and also changes the emotional action on the other side of it so that you're able to move forward in a different way.
So here are the big ones. Thought records, which we talked about, like track your situations. Like I call this is probably not the best terminology, but it helps me. When something happens and you want to go back and reflect, do a mental and emotional autopsy on what just happened. Go back and dissect it to a place of like, okay, that's not the outcome I wanted. What happened? And so the thought record is just kind of tracking, going, okay, let's see if I can go. I know what the emotion was, like you were saying. I know what the outcome was, but how did I get here? And so that's kind of going backwards and going, okay, what was that automatic negative thought? And you begin to write those down is a big one.
A practical one for me would go back and again do a post-mortem on something that happened. And then I found with me, a lot of my negative stuff, when I would go back and look at something, I would say, oh, I should have done this. This needed to happen different. And then stopping to say, okay, I would prefer to have done this differently. However, this is what happened. Okay, so now what do I do next time? In light of that, what do I do? How do I do this differently?
And that's what we would call Socratic questioning, basically creating a bunch of questions to reflect on and to adjust how to do that differently, which is fantastic.
Another one that I've used practically is I would go back and look at things and would say, okay, what's the lie in this scenario that I believed? And then what was the actual truth that was there?
And you know what that's called?
What?
Cognitive restructuring.
No, I like those are just little things that I've, that one wasn't even necessarily taught to me like in counseling, but it was like, okay, there was a lie there. What was the lie that I believed? And what was the actual truth?
And so those are some simple things that you can do. Thought records, cognitive restructuring, Socratic questioning. And a lot of times too, there's something we call, if you want to go backwards, there's something we do, it's called behavioral activation. And this is a proven scientific fact that if you, let's think for exercise for a second. We all know it's good for us. But how many of us want to get up at 5:30 in the morning when our alarm's going off, put on our running shoes and go running? Some of you do. You might like, that sounds great. For most of us, the rest of, it's that idea that, okay, my automatic negative thought is crap, I got to get up. But the behavioral activation is, okay, get my shorts on, get my shoes on, let's get out the door and get going. And what happens about 5 or 10 minutes after you move and get going, your body, your brain, your emotions all catch up and go, oh, this is actually kind of nice. This is good. So another homework activity is the behavioral activation. Just do it. No, the Nike slogan, just do it. Just go and do it, and you'll catch up.
Something I like about that is giving yourself, like, thinking through all of the excuses of why you haven't done something in the past. Like, why do I not get up earlier? Oh, I have to get up and to get my clothes together. I have to do this. I have to do that. And like, okay, well, what if that becomes your before bed routine? Like, lay your running shoes out, lay your shorts out, lay your shirt out. Go ahead and set your water can on the sink, so you have to just put water in it before you go out the door if you don't want it ice cold. I like to run. Ice cold water will make me nauseous.
Oh gosh, no, it's horrible.
And so I set everything there, and like, what can I prepare ahead of time so that all I have to focus on is just the thing.
So that's the gist of it, right? There's no magic to it. That's what it is. And I think those are some of the things you can think through on your own. Again, this is not therapy. It's not meant to replace therapy, but we want to give you some insights into different tools that are used in the therapy room so you're not caught off guard and surprised.
So as we land the plane, if someone's considering exploring therapy, what would be a couple of questions they could ask, or a couple of things they could pay attention to if they're surfing a website for practice, or they're setting up a call with someone to go through an intake? What are a couple of questions they can ask in relation to CBT that might help them get to a decision?
Yeah, my favorite question is, how do you see the continuum of change? What does change look like for you? Because ultimately, that's the goal of therapy.
Now, would they ask that? Would that be something they ask to the therapist?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like, yeah, and how do you approach therapy might be another one. Could be an interesting conversation. If obviously if there are certain things that are important to you, certain types of, don't ask who cares if they're Republican or Democrat, but if having somebody that is faith informed is important to you, then don't be afraid to ask that question. Or how do you handle somebody that is really religious or really has a strong faith? That will I mean, obviously, we're all supposed to meet people where they're at, regardless of anything. But you also want to get that, you want to ask some of these harder questions so that you feel, okay, they handled that well. They answered that well. I feel comfortable entering into the beginning stages of this. And here's what I'll say. And I'll say this every time we do one of these episodes. You can get 2-3 sessions in and start hitting some red flags.
That was going to be what I would follow it up with. When you decide to try, therapy, you don't come to a decision after the first session. It is going to take at least 3 sessions before you start to feel the the rust breaking off and starting to move. And it's also going to take a few sessions to get to a place where you have some questions to bring. It's like, hey, this is a bit confusing to me. These are the alarm bells. And know that no matter where you are in your mental health spectrum, whether you're like, okay, you're not as great as you'd like to be, but you're definitely not in red flag territory. Like, I am in an emergency situation. No matter where you are on the spectrum, do not just sit there and not talk.
Nope. And do not just sit there and go, this is not a good fit.
Don't just take whatever. Do not, and just think it's not a good fit and just stick with it just because you feel like you're at the end of the rope. Ask questions and stand up for yourself and be curious.
And here's what I will say is a good therapist, the way we train and the way we are trained, is if it's not a good fit, we do everything we can to find you a good fit. That is what a therapist is supposed to do, period. It's our ethics. It's what we, just like the Hippocratic Oath that doctors take, that's what we take, something very similar, that we are meant to make sure that your well-being is cared for, regardless if that's with us or with somebody else.
I think that's a good one to land the plane on. Would you say that that's an okay question to ask if someone's just curious about therapy? Like, hey, if we get 4 sessions in and I feel like, if one of us feels like something's off, or if we get 4 sessions in and you feel like this is not a good fit, will you tell me and help me find somebody else?
Yes. That is an amazing question to ask in the first 30 minutes or an hour of session.
I would definitely ask that question. That would be one to have. Well, Mark, this is great. I like these shorter episodes from time to time. I think these are great to unpack because there's, tons out there. Like, there's a whole bunch of different types of therapy and things to do. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we could do this every week for the next 52 weeks and still have stuff to talk about. So,
oh yeah, it's a really fun series. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Guys, as always, check out mentalhealthmadesimple.life. We have tons of practical resources. If you are a listener and you are in the ministry space, you're a pastor, maybe you attend a church, and you want to bring the mental health conversation inside of your church community, check out mentalhealthmadesimple.life for churches. We have created an incredible resource to meet the church where the church is and help the church bridge the gap between mental health and equipping people, equipping to literally love people like their neighbor. We will have a ton of resources coming for men, women, families, leaders. This is just one that we have started. So if you know someone who attends a church and you want to bring mental health, the conversation into your church community, reach out to us. We would love to give you a sample that we've created to see how it might fit. No shame, no guilt, just to show up to simply and practically meet the spiritual community with clinical, science-backed practical help. Leave us a rating and review. Guys, we love having these conversations, and we will see you right back here next time on another episode of Mental Health Made Simple podcast.